place called the Maverick that was somewhere down the street.
I heard something about that, vaguely.
I mean,
That wasn't McCain, was it?
But, to be honest with you, I've always had an interest in politics. And at one point, I did run for an assessor position when I was in the city of Somerville.
Okay.
I subsequently ended up working as an employee for the city of Somerville. And there could be some conflicts of interest. So I've always had an interest in running for political office. And I didn't know when I saw the advertisement in the paper that this was an elected position. I thought it was a voluntary position.
I see.
So I have been contemplating for some time to pull papers and run for political office. Not for you guys.
Oh, thank you.
You never go home.
Now, with having to work with the CPC, and then sometimes there's overlaps, you have to reach out and work with other departments and committees and so on. I mean, how do you feel about either delegating or letting go of something that you have to make a decision and say, okay, it's time for them to take this over? How do you feel about doing and delegating like that?
Listen, obviously, I would be the new guy on the block if I got the position. So there are certainly people that have been in this field and have more experience than I do. So obviously, I would, take a lead. I could give some of my advice, but I would take a lead and just, if I have to let it go, you let it go, and move on. That's all you can do.
Okay. Thank you.
Laurie?
I think one of the things about Somerville, and I know a little about Somerville, that it is quite dense. And probably one of the problems that we deal with in planning board, especially when it comes to things like site-based reviews, how do you interface residential and commercial, and even light business districts, especially in the highway businesses, how would you interface those? Do you have any thoughts on how, how do you feel about that? Do you have any thoughts on communication of commercial and residential?
When I was in the city of Somerville, we had a number of different zoning districts. I mean, we had RA, which was very restrictive, RB, which was, single and two-family, and then you have RC, which would be three-family, multi-unit, and then you would have a VA, which the VA zoning district was really like the overlay district for small businesses as well as residential zoning. And
Is it multifamily?
most of the time,
Primarily?
primarily, most of the time you would have a storefront and 2 units above the storefront. So,
We call that smart.
well, I mean, I was involved somewhat in have you ever heard of Brownfield?
Yeah.
I was involved in a project right outside of Union Square, which, for those of you who may or may not know, Union Square was notorious for junkyard. And over the years, these guys with, antifreeze, oil, and obviously became a hazardous waste site. And this developer came in, he got federal money, and he cleaned up the site, and he put in both commercial and residential.
so many different things, and I only think it's just so many, so new thoughts and new ideas are, I think some of the questions that you got asked tonight were people looking for new ideas to see if you had some. You know, basically, and that's what we're looking for. You have to look for ways to make this town better. And definitely use all knowledge.
Well, I'm willing to give you some of my ideas. Whether they work or not.
Well, don't, I think, don't feel as if you're gonna, it would be valuable after all. We are listening to see what ask you.
Heidi?
As a probably aware, my training is come off having a full-time balance in my budget, generating new revenue. What are your thoughts on converting residential landlord with my rate to commercial or providing economic incentives to new businesses or existing businesses like parking, mainline, and stuff?
You're asking me to convert residential land into commercial land on Route 28?
For example, there are some residential parcels that actually front or right behind business parcels on 28.
Mhm.
I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Drawing on from my experience, I've had issues in the city where businesses own, because of their location and because of what it took for a business to function in the city, particularly, it was a thorn in my side with waste removal. Dumpsters, trash removal, and if they abutted a residential neighborhood, I would inevitably get 10 phone calls a week from an individual who lived next to that business, complaining that the dumpster was there at 6:30 in the morning as opposed to 7 o'clock or 6:15. So we had restrictions where, you know, these waste management companies, they weren't supposed to pick these dumpsters up until 7 o'clock in the morning, but inevitably, they'd get to the job and off they'd go in their truck and they'd get their route finished as quickly as they possibly can. So, can it work? I think it can work depending upon what types of businesses are in those areas. If you have food businesses, you're gonna have those issues. If you have, you know, office businesses, you don't come across those very often.
Tell me a little bit about what you do now, in a little more detail than what you have on your resume.
I do a lot of permanent acquisition for developers. I just finished a permanent acquisition for a farm stand behind Fenway Park for the Samuels Group. And I also just did a permanent acquisition and a total renovation on a three-family residential structure in Chelsea. Those are the two recent things that I just completed.
So basically, you're...
And I also have subcontractors that work for me.
Mhm.
I did a tenant fit out for two gentlemen at Scientific Research out of, it's on the Somerville Cambridge line, and it's really a think tank for MIT and Harvard University. They both have their doctorate in calculus, and they're into doing these things for these flat panel TVs, so I did a fit out for them.
I'm all set. Anyone else?
One question.
questions? I have one last question. I was looking at your resume, and I don't mean to embarrass you or anything, but I'm looking at the resume, and it seems like, if I'm reading this right, you were the superintendent of inspectional services for a period of time. Before that, you were the local building inspector, and then after this period of time, you were the local building inspector again.
That's right.
What occurred at
A new mayor.
a new mayor? Good answer.
That helps you.
Truthful answer.
That's politics.
Truthful answer. Yep.
I was assuming there was some kind of organizational change or something that took place.
Usually,
Any other questions? Then, how does the CPC want to proceed?
Do a roll call vote.
Yeah, we have to do a roll
You
call
have to
vote.
do
We
it.
have two
Yeah,
candidates.
by this gentleman or the other gentleman.
Is there any
That would be the right
discussion
way to
that we
do it.
should have prior to that?
We usually, in the past, we've done our interviews kind of focused on
Together,
everything
right.
We haven't been here, so we
Yeah.
discussed it a
Yeah.
little bit, and then we made our final decisions here. I don't know if you wanna put up,
Well, Pat, I want to get back to, I should ask Patrick one more question. I'm assuming that whether or not you were appointed this evening, that you're interested and you would take out papers and run?
absolutely.
What-
the question you asked Daniel last week.
Right, I did.
Yeah.
And I
And
did for,
he answered your question.
I did for a purpose, because now there's a little dilemma, at least in my head, I have a dilemma. And that is of appointing anybody for this short period of time.
Right.
Because I think whoever we appoint, we give an advantage to if both parties are interested in running in May. And I just wanted to put that out for discussion.
Well, again, what was the thought process, Chris, in relation to filling the vacancy, I mean, with a short period of time?
If we have an absence, we have a problem that we don't have quorum for site plan reviews and things of that nature.
Because that requires what?
Well, actually, only for special permits. I mean, with 3 members, we can do most everything.
Right.
Most everything, anything that's a special permit does require a 4 vote.
Do you see any coming down over the next 3-4 months? Special permits?
You never know, and we can't, once they,
anything sitting on the table right now that would,
but we do have a large one that's supposed to come in. We keep hearing it's supposed to come in, it could come in any day.
But you could still make a decision with 4 members.
We can make a decision with 4 members.
The only issue is going to be if someone is
Right.
not
Does it
present.
have to be unanimous?
yeah,
Yes.
it'd have to be unanimous.
Yes, you saw that happen last week.
Now, Steve,
Briefly.
you're right. It required all 4 members.
That's right, it all had to be